Yeah, it's like so we gave out all the best picks when it was off stream here, but
I know we're already on the tight ends. All right, so we're back. We're back. Couple a little technical difficult. Listen, man, internet at the hotel. You can't. It's Wi-Fi. We're all hardwired in when we're home. But what are you gonna do? Alex is in New Orleans, still doing a show for us. So
I feel like such an amateur though. That's embarrassing.
yeah, I mean, not great, but so let's talk about we hit all running. Was there anything else you wanted to hit at running? My last point I made was obviously this is going to be way different, but if Dobbins really is 10%, if Gus Edwards really is 4% at those prices, I will have some interest there just because Cleveland is one of the worst run defenses in the league. And I could see this being a game where they try and keep the ball out of Huntley's hands outside of him as a rusher. And these guys, have 30 combined carries. So that to me, if they really are that unpopular, is someplace I will look. Any other spots other than Demetric Felton?
Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, like running back's a tough position to get a little contrary, but let's see. Singletary, I know, like overpriced. Kareem Hunt. I think if Wilson's out, then Mostert will be pretty nice, but see.
Okay, let's talk wide receivers here. And thanks, guys, all for jumping back in. We'll figure some way out to turn this into one show. I don't know for anybody watching after the fact, but you guys are watching now. So what does it matter? Wide receivers. Let's get into this. So at the top, you have Jefferson. It's funny because they priced down a lot of the running backs, but then all the top tier receivers are still at the same price they normally be. Jefferson coming off a monster game. Tyreek Hill's $9K. The guy that stands out to me, though, like Stephon Diggs at 8,100 just seems really appealing at that price. What do you like up here at the top? Obviously talking tournament strategy here. So if there's anything you'd like to do differently, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jefferson, like he's been on fire. Like I think he's having one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time. So it's hard to really poke holes in his game. He's a great option for sure. And they're playing in a dome, so that's a plus. Diggs, on the other hand, he's coming off a rougher game where he started off real slow, only ended up with 37 yards. So I have to imagine between Diggs and Jefferson, like pretty much everything's going to lead you to picking Jefferson, right? So I'm kind of thinking Diggs could be a good pivot. I don't think he's going to be like crazy low owned, but compared to Jefferson, especially on FanDuel where they're in the same tier of pricing, I think that Diggs might be a little bit lower owned because of that dud week. Do you think anyone's going to pay attention to those last week results?
Probably not. I mean, it's still just such a good spot for Diggs, even if the weather's not great. Like he could come out here and light up Miami, and you're getting him $1,000 cheaper than Jefferson and Hill. You're right. Like Jefferson having an insane year. But and it's not like he doesn't have a good matchup either. I just the 8,100 on Diggs, he's still pulling 15% less ownership than Jefferson, or 10% less ownership than Jefferson right now. Basically, right neck and neck with Tyreek Hill. So it's maybe you're right. Like maybe that is being considered because you would think at that big of a discount that Diggs would be even higher owned here, but he isn't. So, I mean, I love it. Look, I know that Gabe Davis hasn't been exciting, and he's killed me a few weeks. There's no doubt about that. Like McKenzie is very much hit or miss. There could be games where he has 2 for 10 or something, but I mean, I'm still planning on getting to a lot of these Buffalo receivers just because I think the conditions might be overblown. Miami's secondary is so bad. Buffalo's got a little revenge in their heart after that game earlier this season where they got baked to death on the bench while Miami sat in the shade at their own stadium. The whole Buffalo pass catching team, like all the pass wide receiving core, to me is viable. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think McKenzie, if people remember that Thanksgiving performance where he won the Slate, another 3-game slate. So I think people are going to want to go back to McKenzie. You know, he's a fine play, but I haven't lost hope in Davis. I mean, I think he has a reputation of a guy that he'll have huge spike weeks and other weeks being totally non-existent, but it's not really the way NFL works. I mean, he gets targeted 14% of the time, so it's not like a ton of targets, but he doesn't need to get like 30 points to be in the winning lineup this week. So I think he's a good option. Dawson Knox, I feel like hasn't really gone off recently. So those are two guys that I feel like, I guess Knox had a good game last week, but his highest this week this year is only 12 points. So I definitely prefer Knox and Davis to McKenzie, just because I think people are going to want to play McKenzie.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, Davis, we still know Davis has the ceiling, right? Like he has a very low floor, but if we're talking tournaments here, Davis definitely has a high ceiling in this offense. I'm willing to chase that. What about the other guys priced around him? Like Adam Thielen, Donovan Peoples-Jones coming off a heavy target game with 12 of them last week against the Bengals. Do you have any preference there, really, based on our tools?
So on tools, let's see. Thielen's another guy that, okay, I mean the weather conditions are way better in Minnesota, so he projects a lot better than the other wide receivers in this price range. So I think that we have Thielen's projection higher than Donovan Peoples-Jones by 4 points. So it's really not even close. Just because like one's in a dome with a pass heavy team, the other's with Sean Watson, who hasn't been good, so in a windy game. So Thielen seems like the chalk play, except Pittman, just 600 more on GK is far and away the best option in the mid range. So his stats, he's been targeted 20% of the time this year. He's the wide receiver 1 in Indiana, so I think that gives you a lot of confidence compared to Thielen, who's distant second. I don't know. Like I guess Pittman's definitely number 1 in the 5Ks. Thielen's 2, but both I expect to be kind of popular. What do you think?
Let me ask you this, right? So since Matt Ryan took back over in week 10, when Jeff Saturday took over as interim head coach, this team has looked a little bit different. I don't necessarily know how different, but just looking at it, so weeks 10 through, it would have been 10 through 13 because the Colts had a bye this week. At the target share for the Indianapolis Colts, you have Pittman at 24%. You have Jelani Woods at 19%. Paris Campbell at 18. Alec Pierce at 16. Pittman is still the guy that is seeing the most targets among him, Campbell, and Alec Pierce. What do you make, though, of, say, you do pay up for a running back and you need that salary save, just going down to an Alec Pierce and being like, hey, 3-game slate, they have a respectable 22-point total against a team that's actually allowing more yards per game in the Vikings than any other team in the league. Pierce has 8 targets in 2 of his last 3. What do you think about going down to some of these cheaper wide receivers for the Colts?
Yeah, Pierce, I mean, he's been playing a lot in the recent weeks compared to the start of the season. Not anything we wouldn't expect from a rookie. I'm targeted 16% of the time, so that's solid. I think he's a fine play. The only thing I'd point out is he had a big game last week with 16 fantasy points on FanDuel, like 20 on DK. So I think people are going to want to go to Pierce, going to Paris Campbell, who's been a little bit on the colder side. Like I think, okay, yeah, it's like he hasn't cracked 10 fantasy points in a month. So it's like when I look at the stats, I don't see anything like extremely different between the two. So my lean would be towards Campbell, just from an ownership standpoint. But I'm surprised you're saying Jelani Woods is so high on, because he only ran routes on 29% of the plays last week, where Colin Granson was the tight end 1. So I'd be very hesitant to go back to Jelani Woods.
Yeah, so would I, for sure. And I think that target share is factored into like because I think he missed some games. Yeah, he only played two, and in that one game, he had a massive target share. So, I think it was the Pittsburgh like primetime game. I would be worried about it too. The only, if I were to play devil's advocate for a second, the only pushback I'd have on that is that one, he's basically the cheapest tight end that's viable in the sense of like, I guess you could say Isaiah Likely, but Jelani in the sense of like he'll get on the field and he might see some opportunities. He's proving that he's talented, and we saw that. So in the back of my head, I keep going, and there's nothing that you can really do to quantify this. But like in the back of my head, I keep going. 2 games ago, the guy played 64% of snaps, had a really nice game. Like was their clear best pass catcher. Maybe they realized that they do need to get him the ball more. But again, that's just pure speculation because if this was a full slate, I wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, the counterpoint is Jeff Saturday is a former offensive lineman, very run focused, and
Sure.
he has been running the ball more in Indianapolis than the previous coach. So I think that like they may be judging the tight ends based on more of a blocking standpoint.
Sure.
So I think I'm just looking at the playing time last week, where 2 weeks ago Kylan Granson was out, so that was an opportunity for Tony Woods to break out. He did break out, but then last week he didn't play very much. So now I'm confused, and I would just have to go to Kylan Granson probably because that's who they played more last week. But obviously, it's a situation where we don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I think we can both agree it's confusing for sure.
Yeah,
and you might be right. Like maybe it's just better run blocker. And I don't know. Any other receivers we haven't touched on that you want to get to here? Maybe some low-owned guys, if there are any, that it makes sense.
Let's see. We need to talk about Baltimore
to win a milli, right? Like we're gonna
Baltimore.
Can I ask? Actually, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Are we gonna need something weird to win a milli? Not in the sense of like just make a stupid lineup, but like a milli on a 3-game slate isn't a showdown slate, of course, but it's not a main slate. So how much different do you think you need to get, each lineup in order to give yourself a shot to put yourself, not even just a milli, right? Like the $3 huge. A lot of these contests are going to be big. Probably help people out to know how you approach a 3-game slate compared to a main slate and compared to a showdown slate.
Yeah, I think so this one, it's all going to be game theory because there really isn't any injuries or like value to speak of. So I think one of the things that I like to do on the three-game slate is go for more like onslaught type lineups, because people aren't going to adjust their like roster construction a ton. People love to run it back, but there actually are a lot of games where one team just dominates the ball and the other team doesn't do much. And it's like the 3 and outs are what lead to all these opportunities. So like you don't have to go like there's 100K people in the DK Millie Maker, right? So it's like if something happens 1 in 10,000 times and like you're the only one predicting that, that's good odds. So it's very much like trying to figure out what everyone else is doing and trying to do something a little bit different.
Okay. Yeah. But not get insane either.
The problem is, going for those 1% guys, they just kill your lineup's chance of cashing basically, and that does make up a large part of like the equity of your lineup. So
right,
I'm not someone that tries to turn dust into gold. Like you gotta, like there are a lot of combinations with only 3 games of different players, so you probably don't need to go like incredibly off the board to try to force something.
Yeah, right. Like where if you don't bink, you're dead last.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I got you. So building lineups that are good, like projected well, but small tweaks can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think my best strategy that I come up with is the onslaught. Like also, playing a player versus the defense of the opposing team. That I know Ricky D banked one a couple of years ago where he had 2 players versus the defense and no one was on those players and the defense. So
who was that?
Ricky D.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
Laz gets fit, won that in the main slate twice in a row.
Nice, that's killer. Yeah, so I think playing a player versus your defense. The other thing is stacking up a team with the defense of the same team is pretty unpopular, and that could be an interesting way to differentiate.
Yeah, that's great insight for sure. Because you're right. Like you can still make combinations with good players and relatively popular players, and just whether it's onslaught or whether it's certain guys, like several players against the defense. Yeah. Because it's also possible that like every defense could just finish with less than 10 fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean the odds of that are pretty high because like we only see defensive touchdowns like one in every 3 games or something. So like on average there'll be one, but there will definitely be times where there's not any.
For sure. All right, let's talk tight ends here. Before we do though, Prize Pick, sponsor of the strategy show. I was going to get to this before the show got cut off, but if you guys haven't checked it out yet and it's in your state, there's just no reason not to. Like you got to use the link, otherwise we can't find you. But you're getting a free month of Stokastic plus Platinum, right? Everything on our site, not just football, all of our tools, everything, all of that. When you sign up and deposit, you're also getting up to $100 first match deposit bonus. It's a beautiful thing. Mike just threw the link in the chat as well. The site is sick too. Like there's a million different sports in there. You can mix and match as many as you want into your lineup from different sports. If you hit all 5 of your picks, you're 10xing. I think it's 25x if you hit 6 of 6. But if you're doing like a 5-player lineup and you hit 4, unlike a traditional parlay, you still 2x. You still make money back on 3x. So you can sustain and build a bankroll, but also give yourself a shot to win a lot of money with a million different props. You're just building lineups. You know, other people may call them parlays. Just building lineups with player props. There's no juice on either side, over or under. And there's some great opportunities too. They'll also throw you some bones, like some locks that you can throw in there. So now in a 5-prop lineup, you really only need to hit 4 because the others are no brainer. Links in the description, links in chat. $100 first match deposit bonus, free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. And if Prize Picks isn't available to you, BetMGM. See, we're looking out for everybody here. BetMGM links in the description as well. That'll get you 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. You just take $10, deposit using the link, put it on any team, any game, whatever. Just don't do like an odds boost or something. I guarantee like that won't work. But any straight bet, throw it in there. If it wins or loses, it does not matter. You're still getting 2 months of Stokastic plus Platinum. Here's the kicker though. If it loses, you also have up to $1,000 risk-free bet. So if you take 100, it could be 10, doesn't matter. You take 10, 100, you put that on a game, on a team, on a player prop, and it loses, you get all that money back in free bets. So 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum and up to $1,000 risk-free bet. Prize Picks, BetMGM, one of them's available in your state. I'm sure of it. We'll see you guys over there. All right, let's talk tight ends here. Never really a great position on a 3-game slate. Hawkinson, Andrews, Njoku, Knox, and then it falls off a cliff to like the Woods, Granson, likely Mike Gesicki, who should be minimum salary at this point. Are you paying up for tight end? It's not easy to do this week, but it could be crazy that Hawkinson and Andrews are getting that much ownership, but they're really popular this week.
Yeah, I mean Hawkinson seems like a very good play because Minnesota, they pass a lot and it's in a dome. So I think Hawkinson's kind of the chalk tight end to go to this week. Mark Andrews, I'm like a lot less sold on just because it's Tyler Huntley throwing him the ball. So he's kind of like a distant second, in my opinion, but certainly the more talented player of the two. It's just I'm concerned about the passing volume of Baltimore and the quality of the quarterback play. So Hawkinson doesn't have those question marks, so he'd definitely be who I go to. But let's look at the ownership projections. Looks like Andrews is 22%, Hawkinson is 35%. So maybe punting tight ends, it would be my alternative to playing Hawkinson, I guess. Because
by punting, what do you mean by punting?
Just going for the cheap guys. Colin Granson or Gesicki would probably be the best options, but I guess Njoku and Knox certainly good options. Maybe the play is to stack the tight end with whoever your quarterback is.
Yeah, that definitely, especially with Knox, like even in Njoku with Watson. I do like David Njoku this week. The guy's a big athletic tight end that they can use in the red zone. No issues there. How do you feel about, okay, so we're talking about getting different, right? Tournaments, and it doesn't just have to be the Millie. Like it could be a lot of contests out there, a lot of tournaments. So if you're not maxing the Millie, like it doesn't, I don't, but it's still beneficial to have these conversations from a GPP perspective. How comfortable are you going two tight ends? Because while people will do it, I don't think it's going to be exceedingly popular this week either.
Yeah, I mean, I think two tight ends is always a reasonable option on a 3-game slate because the salary constraints come way more into play. So Knox, anyone sub 4K is cheaper than any skill position player you're gonna get that's realistically good. I guess there might be some wide receivers, but yeah, I think two tight end is perfectly fine. But the reason why you don't want a two tight end build on other slates is more because there's like good values at other positions. This week there's no value, so two tight end is back in play.
Right. Like how much worse is Knox at the flex than Alec Pierce?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense this week. Like I don't see a David Njoku, Dawson Knox lineup being crazy at all if it allows you to get to a lot of great options everywhere else, especially like if you're stacking one of those teams. But you're right. I think it makes sense too to be like, okay, well, who's my quarterback? Or, what game is this? Can I just go with the run back tight end or can I go with the tight end in the stack? All right. So we don't really need to talk about defense, but I have a question for you because I think obviously Buffalo defense makes a lot of sense. 2,700 in a bad weather game against a warm weather team. Do you have any are you cool with getting lineups that have any defense on a slate like this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think defense is almost more of a strategy question than a talent question. So one of the defenses I'm kind of seeing as I advantage is the Colts defense. It's like Minnesota is aggressively chalky. So if you go with Colts and they're not the most likely to have a big defensive game, but like you're more likely to get the rest of your lineup right if the defense goes off because you're not going to have those guys everyone else has. So I like the Colts. The Vikings kind of are similar, where both are the lowest owned. And the Dolphins, maybe Dolphins and Colts would be my favorites just because they're the cheapest and the opposing players are high owned.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, if Dolphins defense ended up having a game and I'm just like, we're wrong about the weather and the weather's horrible, that would take you a long, long way.
Definitely.
That's what sucks about these 3-game slates sometimes though, because if there's one defense that, it's like 8-9% owned and they go off for like 25 fantasy points and you're way underweight on them, it's so hard to come back from that.
Yeah, it only sucks if you don't have them though. So
that's true.
Like what I'm seeing in the projections is the defenses are all between 5 and 8 fantasy points. So it's really like the lowest is Colts at 5.9, the highest is Bills at 7.8. So it's really from a projection standpoint, we're just kind of throwing up our hands and be like, your guess is as good as ours.
Right. So obviously, like I wouldn't ask you all these questions about defense on a regular slate, but I think it is kind of important from a strategy standpoint. With the Vikings and Colts being, as low owned as they are, or I'm sorry, Colts and Vikings are both, very low owned. I mean, do you just have more incentive to go to low owned defenses?
Definitely, especially when the low owned defenses are like against high owned players. So I mean, there's a connection there, but I think that it's as much as the players you're kind of like betting against as the players you're betting on.
For sure. Hey, appreciate you guys watching as always. Remember, 3 free days of all of our NFL tools if you want access. No better time to do it because you got Saturday football, 3-game slate. You got Sunday, 10-game slate. You got Monday night as well, showdown slate. All the tools will be posted for all of that. 3 days. If you don't like it, we will gladly refund your misery, which is $0 because it's free. So check it out. The lineup generator. Alex said he's doing double time on the projections because he's in the final down there in New Orleans. We're joking, by the way. We're not like he's not he's not half-assing the projections every week until he gets into a final. But maybe we'll have some extra luck this week, and we'd love to have you guys come over and join the Stokastic family. So I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking with us through the technical issues, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Deeper Dive live before lock Saturday. Then Alex and I will be back with you with Ben for the Deeper Dive and all those other shows for Sunday. Until then, good luck. Peace.